We are back and live with Richard Alan Miller. There's a shot of the new part of my studio that I worked on. Richard on the big screen. And he has Perry Mason on either side of him. How's that for a company? So he is here to be talking. We're going to be doing a segment about talking with yourself in the future and having a conversation and how it can help you now. And it is funny how he said this when we were talking about it, because I have an idea about this. I want to run it by him. But I want to mention Richard Alan Miller is, again, one of our fave guests on the show. Many interviews are up there. Many videos are up there. So you can go to our YouTube channel. We have a dedicated playlist, which is updated with each new interview that you can see him on. He's got I got a list on the webpage of Feet to Fire Radio that has Feet to the Fire Radio.com. It has a PDF with all the books from Richard Alan Miller that he has. Unlike some of the other colleagues that have been involved in black ops and whatnot, he's not on a government payroll. He's a working man. And so he's an author and lecturer, does training for local survival, living off the land in organic manners and so forth. He's available for training and commentary on that. Richard Alan Miller, 1L in AlanMiller.com is his main website. I also have the link to his actual YouTube playlist that I have full of videos, getting up into tens of thousands of views. And, of course, he's a very interesting guy. One of these guys who was one of the original Black Op team members, and his research into paranormal began as a graduate physicist working 11 years with Navy Intel. He is there at the beginning, adding protocols and whatnots for that. He's one of these guys that is into learning and goes into it with like a child with open eyes and an open heart. And because of that, he's been spared a lot of evil. So let's keep that going for him. I want to see him for many more years in this process. Let me shut up and bring in Richard Alan Miller. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, James. It's nice to be here. How did Dr. Evil put it? Yeah. Spared evil. I don't know, man. I see it everywhere now. And I'm not looking for it. But when you look at our current roster for president, I'm embarrassed and can absolutely say this is no longer the country I served and protected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it's an embarrassment.
I want to say it's probably been bad for a while, but now it's getting so blessedly obvious that it's hard to keep your head under a rock anymore. Oops, I got the wrong.
No, it's terrible. Hillary Clinton, what she did in terms of my understandings of national security, the last woman that even did a half of what she did was executed 10 years ago. Now, she knows so much about people and their dirty clothes that part isn't even probably going to play. Donald Trump is perhaps the most stupidest, egotistical, how did Jon Stewart put it? A man baby. I'm embarrassed to be, it's crazy. And this is supposed to represent our most educated and most scholarly and most morally correct. What has happened to America is that we have been hijacked. China comes to mind. We are doomed. I'm not kidding. You want to know where we're going to be in 2 years? All you have to do is look at what's happening in Venezuela this moment. There it is.
Well, I do not have a whole lot of, for our talks, it's not a question. It's not a question
Get a
of
fight and go off to Sturgis. Let the rest of the world fall down in a big black hole.
Well,
it's terrible.
I mean, it's not caring. It's that there's only so much. I could do what I can do, but then I have to just live life along the way.
Deniability. That's the problem. Is that we are ignorant, ill-informed, and complacent. And there are two generations of kids now. That's who Hillary's playing for. Gotcha. Is the younger crowd that grew up essentially with no family. We're doomed. And I don't have an answer other than just say, no, I'm going to vote for Mitt Romney. I'm not going to vote for either of these people. This is crazy. I mean, really, it's crazy.
Mitt Romney doesn't make me feel any more comfortable about this.
Oh, exactly. Now you're reading in the right ballpark. It's why? And the Democratic Party is gleeing like crazy as the Republican Party has now split into two different, I don't know what you would call them anymore. Tea Party has even a bunch of people acting like Indians, trying to blame it on the Indians when they're throwing the tea in the Boston Harbor. It's wrong. It's all wrong. Yeah. There is no honor anymore in the thing. It's wrong.
Well, I think one of the aspects about this is it has one looking for what do we do during this time, and we were talking about what to talk about here, and we're talking about conversing with ourselves in the future. And I'd like you to kind of describe that. You're not talking about this particular life, or are you talking? I mean, how could you kind of put some context on that?
Yeah, well, the physical plane, this current movie that we are all watching, is not real. It is a construct of our imagination. Imagination is real. That means we're creating our own apocalypse and, I don't know, aliens, whatever. Anything that you could possibly imagine is most likely real, and more because you're only in fourth grade in regard to awareness of consciousness and the possibilities of what it could absolutely mean. I just completed an article, part of a new book I'm writing called The Non-Local Mind in a Holographic Universe. And that was on the structure of water and how psyche is brought into matter. Now, tonight, we're going to start on the next chapter after that, which talks about the Casimir effect. And the chapter is titled Rock the Casimir, or Adventures in Time Travel. And these are projects I started with the military some 50 years ago, literally. And my mentor, Dr. Stanley Krippner, is going to come up and visit me in early June. He comes up to watch the Shakespeare Festival. And I get a chance to stay with one of my most favorite people. I met him in 1969, and is the one that introduced me to Edgar Mitchell in 1970 and made me part of Mission Control, where I did the ESP studies on the moonwalk in 1971. And Ed Mitchell departed us just earlier this year. It was a sad thing because he was one of the more outspoken astronauts that attempted to alert the public to the fact that there are many things that individual cells within the government know about that are not disclosing to the American public, and for whatever reasons. And now it has gotten so far as to literally being, our government is run by a bunch of criminals. And it starts on the local level in Chicago, you know, your little local neighborhood things, right on up into world politics. And I don't know how to change that part. What I can do is change my relationship to it and the fact that I'm here to witness the end of days. And the fact is, we are literally at that moment where we're all of us here purposefully here present as a metaphor to witness the change. And it will change. And the 1%ers are not going to no longer going to be able to get rid of the 2%ers. And all of what happens in the trickle down process. Who used trickle down? Was that Reagan? I forget who that was. Seen one Wed Road, you've seen them all. I just finished a movie with George Clooney called Money Monster. Go figure. And they're grooming him for a future president.
Hey, I wanted to go through that because you mentioned that when we were talking, and I think it's to me, it's like when you said it, I thought about it,
And there it is.
He's
Just like-
sellable.
like
He's
Hollywood.
definitely sellable, and he's definitely on the
There you go.
liberal.
He is being trained just like Schwarzenegger at all. Listen, we have no idea how we have been ignorant, ill-informed, and complacent. Here we are. I don't know what to say.
I wish you would tell me directly what's on your mind instead of playing pussyfooting around.
Yeah. Obviously, it's time to evolve our consciousness, and that's what's happening. And as I speak, almost everybody gets it, and they get a portion of what I'm suggesting. And the responses now are people that are true seekers wanting to do their part. And trust me when I tell you, how it works is if I've got it, everybody's got it, because at an archetypal level, I am the walrus.
I did think about that statement you have said a few times, which you will. I do have that as a bumper later on in the show. So I'm gonna say you definitely are the walrus. So I'm gonna play that song. But so I mean, I everything you're saying, of course, is good and applicable. But again, this idea of talking with ourselves in the future. I mean, what do you mean by that? I always had this kind of a thought that we're living simultaneous lives. It'd be like, I break it down like this. You go to first grade through eighth grade, right? At the same time, you're a version of us is in each grade, and we're reaching up and down to help one another simultaneously. I mean, how does that sound? Is that in the ballpark or no?
You mean like mentorship where the third grader takes the first grader to the principal's office? Yes. And your higher self has a multitude of timelines. You dream about them. You have other lives going on inside you in dream state, in semi-quasi awareness, where there are subtle differences. And what you're trying to do is discover your purpose, why you're physically, literally isolated as an egotistical, separate individual from others. That's what ego does. It is a survival coefficient. It is a tool important in the process of consciousness. It also needs to be somehow put in a lower part of the bigger picture in terms of its relationship to everything else. And when you do that, you start to realize the human element that distinguishes us from the non-human elements. We started in, we'll get to time in a minute. We started with the concept of demons. And the demons, they fell from heaven out of grace with God. And there were 72 of them, Lemegeton. And if you study the Greater Keys of Solomon and some of the other older texts, you will find that what a demon does is a lesser element of self. Now, greed and lust and jealousy and rage are called deadly sins. And that is essentially what a demon does. It is a lesser element or aspect of what is considered human but not worthy. And so what you're trying, those are moral codes of ethics. You know, Mally Duckard and his ethical man concept. You know, a moral man, an ethical man knows not to cheat on his wife. A moral man won't. George Clooney's movie is about how this individual that runs Wall Street loses a glitch, is what it's called, that turns out when he meets a moral man that refuses to participate. It's about values, and it's about walking your talk, and the idea of being in center with yourself. And while that might be different than others, you know, you're in conflict, whatever, that's God's will. What your purpose is to discover what you're supposed to be doing here. Now, how do you do that? There are rules of engagement, and that was one of the purposes of what they called high magic, the ability to pathwork, to work toward your purpose. And that is what pathworking is. And it's a regimented series of rituals celebrating myth that would allow you a way of discovery. Simon says you can go halfway to the door. That would suggest that the door is really not the goal, even though that's in the key words, because you'll never get there. What that is the part about the journey of going from here to there. And that's called the moment. The moment has to do with a beginning, a middle part, and the end. In sacred psychology, imaginal psychology, they make a distinction between the sacred and the profane. That's a book by James Hillman, one of my teachers. And the idea of sacred is when you enter a point of moment where it's timeless. That place is called the flow. That means you're not in conflict. That's the way my friend in Berlin put it, quoting Aleister Crowley, quoting me, quoting Aleister Crowley, when he said, when you are doing your true will, none shall say nay. That means the universe wants that to happen. So at the end of the day, when it's all over, what actually happened was your intent. And the difference between intent and purpose is actually what makes you human over a machine. Machines can, as another life form, a machine can accurately predict what you're going to do. J.2 software can accurately predict what you're going to do before you even know how to yourself going to do it. That's sort of like Minority Report. And now the law enforcement in numerous larger cities like New York City are actually using this software, Jade 2.0. That was what the Jade Helm experiments were about, was to shake down the accuracy of the software. That's how they would determine what color dot they would put on your mailboxes, because you are going to do it this way. You are going to do it that way. And you don't even know that yet. But you will most likely do it. And at the end of the day, what actually happens, whether you did it kicking and screaming or with full intent, that is what's called intent. This is called the Stanford argument, by the way, out of Stanford, on the difference between intent and intentionality. And the difference is that's what a machine can predict, and purpose is slightly higher and would appear the same until you have a slightly higher level of awareness. And that's why you are evolving toward consciousness, evolution of consciousness.
I mean, I would challenge, though, that a machine could make prediction. I mean, if it could look into your normal routine, hey, a machine's going to predict that I'm going to go to work tomorrow and drive a truck. Well, all right, fine. I do it every day during the week. But it can predict mundane things, and it maybe if it studies your choices over time, it can come up with a scenario and say, if given this scenario, most likely he'll pick in this order of probability these type of deals.
That's Cliff High, yes. Doing On's algebra and an algorithm that Goertzel developed that allows prediction based on chatter on the internet. That was last year. This year, we have evolved our algorithms just like they did in this movie, Money Monster, where the algorithm doesn't make a mistake, and you can determine then when it's a human fingerprint, is the way they put it in the a guy that's a criminal, doing it with intent. Now, they have software today that can predict a crime in a given spot or location in New York City 18 minutes before it occurs. How does that work? And to be able,
I'm having a hard time buying that.
It's okay. Uh, don't take my word. The Jade Helm experiments, see what they've actually begun using in predictive software for crime detection. And that is where we are at this very moment. And what I'm trying to, they're getting ready, for example, just in Grants Pass last week, SWAT team did a series of exercises around an empty bank near Walmart with an NRAP in a little town like Grants Pass, preparing for when the banks fail and cannot give you $10,000 when you go to the bank and ask for it. When I went to the bank and transferred $9,000 last Friday night, they had to give it to me in 50s. They didn't have it in hundreds, for example. That actually happened at my bank. Once the bank is aware, they regurgitate their actual cash flow money-making thing. Money has moved so fast now, it's not even based on gold anymore. It's based on microseconds. And the idea of an algorithm. The whole thing is nuts. And where we're going with it is a machine can simply, at some point, take over and manipulate and manage most of us that are not awake. And money in itself is like a theatrical prop. It's not real.
Yeah, no,
what's real when you do labor.
That's easy.
Real.
That I can see easily, and I can see them like studying rats, us and rats, and so on. So I mean, I'm getting a big picture how they can do that. They can predict how it can happen, but I'm worried about them using this kind of a crude tool and turning up the resolution well past its ocular abilities.
They turn up the resolution just slightly beyond your conscious awake state. And that's where we are today with our software and algorithms. We're actually doing extremely well in that arena. However, there are outside forces that are actually what deal with it, like the sun. The sun, for example, is what runs the business here on Earth, not chemtrails. Chemtrails are man's foolish attempt to try to, manufacture, change, or otherwise manipulate, fold, or spindle what they choose. And the problem is, the bottom line is the sun right now. And the sun is actually going through some changes. And I don't know if you saw that sunspot that I posted yesterday.
Yeah, that's one of the things I want to talk about.
Yeah, here we go. There is a sunspot the size of Jupiter coming off the sun, for 1/4 of the size of Jupiter coming off the sun. And if that has the right effects, we could be back easily in the Stone Age in a minute. And that could be this week. It won't happen. NASA is pretty accurate on that document that they issued called the future weapons of war, the war after next. And that is a whole different concept. That's how they do it in Independence Day. They take us down into the Stone Age. There was this one movie called, there were like 5 waves and of the way the aliens come in and attack. It was a recent science fiction movie that came out. And the first wave, of course, is an EMP strike, dropping everything down into the Stone Age so that we're no longer able to communicate. That's what HAARP's about. So here we are at the end of days, and we have choices on how we're going to respond to all of this, including Nibiru and what we call an EVA, which is an event, extinction event. It's
Ellie.
Yeah, Ellie. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah. A life
extinction level event.
Yeah, that is a place where man in higher technologies than ours, like the Clovis, crawled out of a cave and became the Hopi 5,600 years later. The Hopi sing about that in the Blue Kachina. There are many different songs, many different references. The Sphinx has just recently entered into that fray as a spaceship with star maps in it. So I have no idea what it all means other than what I'm discovering today is that we have a choice. There's on Netflix, there's a new series called, what is it called? I'm Not Awake Today. It's but I'm going to try to remember things. It's about survival in where they take individuals and they drop them into an environment with knowledge base and tools, and then those that are able to survive have somehow or have a different kind of relationship to what they're doing. It is about attitude. It's remote survival. It's called remote survivor or remote survival. There are 3 issues. There are 6 people. The 2 that fail are because their mores values will not allow them to do something like drink water that's discolored, eat a lizard that has protein. They can't do that, and that's why they fail. One guy had claustrophobia, needed to crawl into a small cave that he dug in the soil, lined it with tree branches to keep warm, and as the temperature dropped, could not crawl down into it because of his claustrophobic reality. And because of that, that's why he failed. Now, that's how you're going to do it. It's about your attitude, your relationship to yourself. And so what you're trying to do is find dialogue, have an internal dialogue going. It's not outside with knowledge base on how to make fire with a shoelace. It's about the internal landscape of your belief systems and how you use those as tools rather than absolute drivers.
All right,
that's where we're at today.
Now, if you can hold on there, I just got a text. Our dog has injured himself. I have to go in and help administer some holistic stuff. So I'm going to take a short break, and I'll run in there and back, and then we can continue. But Richard Allen Miller, well, I guess we're going to be talking about a lot of things. So whatever may have planned may have went out. So hold in there. We'll be right back right after this. Dog, it's a Jack Russell. It's like 13 years old, and the dog doesn't realize it's not 1 year old anymore. And it throws itself around like a rag doll. And the Jack Russell, when he wants to go get something, literally throws himself at the direction and then worries about landing later. And he's now been hurting his joints and stuff. So I looked up some stuff online for... let me bring in Richard here. I got to find a little thing here. And welcome back, Richard. It's Arnica, I think it is. Arnica, a 20C?
Arnica, yeah, it's for pain.
Right. So
it grows all through Montana and Idaho as a noxious weed.
I got that. I gave him that. There was a veterinarian who wrote an article with the proper dosage. So I got that, and then I got a concoction from the holistic store for dogs, which has valerian and passion flower.
That's Valium, by the way. That Valium sulfate. Yeah, muscle relaxant.
Yeah. So I got that. So and it's working. He's kind of just laying around, but it was time. And
yeah, he's strength out.
So it was time.
Meds, just like us.
And Lucinda freaks out at this stuff, and so I went in and I was going to bring water out for my own little supplements, and I forgot. But anyway, we're back in my live talk.
Feed. I had a chocolate lab that actually lived to 18 years old. Princess was a rescue from my little girl that died of leukemia. And then for the next 4 years, I took care of Princess. And what I did is I fed her what I eat. I didn't give her glucosamine with chondroitin. I did give her MSM, but she lived to 18 years old because basically she ate what I ate. And actually, our diets dictate how long we live. That's one of those formulas that you have to pay attention to.
Yeah, my sister, we had a cat who was reacting to what later we figured out was the food. And so we went to, what's the Blue? All-Nat Blue Basic.
Yeah.
And plus I added, this is my addition, acidophilus. Sure enough, you can give it to animals, and I found it, and all of them are just really healthy, except for my dog, Charlie, the knucklehead, who likes to throw himself all over the place. I got, you're getting old, pal, So anyway,
What you need to do is get him a bomber helmet and put him on the back seat of your motorcycle.
You know what? I do have an idea. I'm trying to talk with Sin Nguyen. There's a backpack, or you can wear it on your back or front, where the dog's arms and legs and his tail comes through and sits with his head up on your chest. You know, I'm going like, we got to do it. We got to get him for it. He'll love it. She's afraid. He's going to freak out and jump off. She lives by fear. She's constantly driven by fear as her overriding thing. I mean, we all have that thing, but as soon as when I bring up an idea.
Here's the deal about fear. I went and saw this excellent movie with Pat Boone called God Is Not Dead Too. And what they were trying to do was make a distinction between the choice you have between fear and faith. Faith is an arbitrary feeling like fear is. And which one makes you feel better? That's what it's about, because it starts with the structure of your water. And so your internal landscape right out of the gate is immediately augmented by your choice of values. And so I have written a new workbook that is equals the second workbook 2 for Power Tools. It's Can You Live Off the Grid for 30 Days? And it opens by saying, quote, everything happens, let's say, everything works out in the end. If things are not working out, it's not yet the end.
It's not the end.
and that is,
I like that.
The concept of the moment, where you have a beginning, a middle part, and an end. And when you have 6 things that are thrown in front of me, I had 5 other things besides your invitation to join you tonight. And the one thing that sticks out more significantly than the other things in front of you, what we call synchronicity, is actually the way a specific future timeline is communicating to your consciousness at this very moment. And that then literally changes your past. And how I'm proving it is, let me give you an example in my life. When I actually worked with SEAL Corporation in the early 70s, Navy SEALs didn't exist. They had frogmen. They did have that acronym for sea, land, and all of that, air, SEALs, but earth, air, it was all the elements. They had that acronym, but SEALs didn't exist. What existed were frogmen, deep divers, and of course astronauts and spooks. And I did all of them. And now, because of how I'm living with myself, that has created a modern myth called Navy SEAL. And it was, at the time I did it, a seal on a jar, like SEAL Corporation. It was out of Amherst, and it was a backwater project of Navy trying to make recon into something more. And what I did was train them in how to be paranormal. And the first protocol that I did was talk about instinct and thinking with the gut. And that is your first brain, your enteric nervous system. That's why you feed your animals the same thing as you, because they will live like you then. It is no longer you are what you eat. It is you are whom you feed. Including the good guys and the bad guys in your gut. And they're all there for a purpose. And they are outside space-time. That means they are somehow connected with your future and your past as the moment. And so if you can tap into your gut and instinct, that then becomes even more real than intent, which is what actually happens. That's where you become human, not a machine, where you have dialogue with that inner part of self. For you and me, like in the movie All That Jazz, it's probably feminine. Your higher self, your angel, is a feminine element of your masculine external part of self based on neurotransmitters and hormones. Now, the difference between the one and the other is in micrograms. As who's that changed sex that's now about to go back into changing himself again? I've been
I don't
in the
know.
media.
It's not one of the things.
Jenner. Yeah.
He's coming
Yeah.
back?
Bruce Jenner then became Serena, and now is going to become Bruce again, probably. And that's called, in some circles, androgyny, where there is an integration between the masculine and feminine parts of behavior in terms of integration of the total self.
Now, put your finger there, because I want to come back to that, but I want to before I get too far away from the synchronicity, I liked what you said. It resonated with me that the synchronicity is coming from another aspect of myself, which may be in a different space and time, and thus at a different level. It doesn't have to be like God talking to you or your guardian angel. I mean, it could be an aspect of you who is in a different, have a different perspective.
Well, you have a bunch of voices. You have voice of reason and voice of coyote. You know, should I do this? Should I not do this? You know, inside and outside the box. As it turns out, that voice is the same person, the voice of reason and voice of coyote, because change is the rule. You will always be required to step outside the box at some point where you have an element of uncertainty and fear. And that's where you have a choice in the internal landscape part of deciding whether or not I'm going to be afraid of what might be happening, like I might get busted doing these drugs, or you have faith that you're here to do it because this is what's supposed to happen. Now, how do you integrate those two things? That was the protocol I trained SEALs on in the early 70s, how to instinctually make the right decision. The book, ESP Induction Through Forms of Self-Hypnosis, will take you to a place where your ability in guessing increases 400 times over where you are consciously. And if you're a really good guesser, then that means you are extremely close to having internal dialogue with yourself and will never make a mistake.
Now I'm getting really close with that. In fact, I was talking to you about this several shows ago, a couple of years ago. I'm getting better. Yeah. I still have, excuse me, I still have that when it's a crucial thing, I still get that panic and it kind of clouds it. If I, for example, I'm walking around and I get it, no crew. I was walking past, going to get the dog stuff, right, for the dog, and I went by Staples, and something inside me says, go into Staples. You need paper. I go, that's right. I'm out of paper for printing out stuff for work. I go in there. There was one box of 100% recycled paper that was, when you buy it was 10 reams. If you buy it all, it's cheaper than the cheapest paper there. But if you buy one ream, it's $12 a ream. But if you buy the whole box, it's like $3 a ream. And I asked the guy, is this the right price? Is this price okay? You know, so I got it, you know. And so that stuff I'm fine with. But like when I'm worried about, I got a problem in my truck, you know, there's something wrong with the engine. I think I'm getting it. I think it's this. I think it's that. And you know, and then I lose it. You know, I mean, it's not like I run down the street.
That word is called serendipity. That's where something gets revealed to you, but it was not the initial intent or question. That's called serendipity. That is another algorithm that's included in artificial intelligence. But synchronicity is the one where 5 things are laid out in front of you. Let's say 5 women. And why you would focus on that one right over there to the other 4 is your future and the way it talks to you. And so there's information going on that you're not consciously aware of why you would focus. Maybe it's because she has thinner ankles. Who knows? I'm an ankle man myself, not a breast man. And so I'm just kidding. But I'm trying to say that there is a way that you respond to things, and that's basically your future. The way I do it with water in explaining what time is that a drop of water falls and hits a pool of water, and you then have waves going outward. Those outward waves are your future timelines. And predicated on how big the drop is, how far it fell, variables, determines the different timelines that happen, whether the waves are a little bigger, further apart, or so on. When the drop hits the water, there is a reflected drop that goes back up a little bit higher, you know, boink, 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 boink. That reflected wave is not a drop of water anymore. What it is actually a thin layer of very special water called exclusion zone water that traps the air inside or the medium that it was falling in. And that is called cavitation and is the primary concept around the Casimir effect and cold fusion processes. It is a doppelganger construct or topological space that is turning into the out of. Yes, just like that picture there. Very good. That is what a cavitation ball is about. It is a topological surface that has H3O2, a very special kind of exclusion zone water that traps it. And that's because the wave that goes inward when the drop hits the pole slaps and forms a skin around the medium. And that becomes a cavitation ball. And I think one of the new world physics theorems will eventually state that everything has a hollow earth, that every star is a binary. And we're just discovering that out past the Oort cloud, that every human being has a opposite sex internal landscape, and that the movie All That Jazz, where he was not playing when he said it's showtime, he was not playing for the crowd. He was playing for that one special woman that was listening. And when I met Eben Alexander in the jungles of Mexico back in 2014, he had written a book called Proof of Heaven. It was a neurosurgeon that witnessed himself. He died and came back and had a near-death experience, as they call it, and then came back to life. And that man likened the model of the woman on the butterfly wing as his sister that he never met, that died at birth, and he never met her, that said that everything loved him. And I suggested that unborn sister, unrealized met sister, was actually a metaphor for the inner part of himself and his relationship to himself. It is the same thing.
Now, let me stop there. Again, before you get too far, you talk about synchronicity, right?
Yes.
This is really funny. I mean, all that jazz, right? I mean, I don't know how many people saw that. It's back in the 70s. I saw it. Every morning when I sit in my chair and I put my boots on, get ready to go to work, I go, showtime, and get up and go to work. Now, is that
right on the head? You're getting the internal vision I mean for you to have so that you actually get it. Because it isn't my model, it isn't my words that make it real, it's your mind's eye. And once you can see that part of self, you're close to having integration and evolving in consciousness. It gives you a total different set of tools in the way to relate to yourself. And once you've got that, you can navigate these waters and literally change this movie.
So who looks out at you from the mirror?
Something creepy, I'll write for Hollywood. I don't know what her name is or what their names are.
No, I mean, but because when I see myself in the mirror looking out, sometimes I think of it as it actively looking. I don't mean some ghost or something. I'm talking about in this internal landscape. It's like
a reflected picture of you on your screen that I'm seeing, which is in reverse to the way it is in my universe. Did you know that the picture that you have me up on the upper screen, not the one I'm seeing from Skype, but yours, is reflected?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It is. It is, actually.
Yes, it is. I'm going to raise my right hand. Yeah. And then one screen, the two can slap each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, because you're sitting like this. You're looking at the cam. And so it'd be your right hand. So I see it as the left because you're sitting looking at it. Well, it'd be the same thing if you're sitting in front of me in a table.
Well, that's the way your brain works. That's why you have two brains, not one. There's your first cavitation in the physical world. And there's a little tiny place where they data transfer called the neodol. That's your narrow band of information going from a white hole into a black hole. Just like in the movie, what was it called? In Interstellar, where he's trying to talk to his daughter in the past by pushing books out of a bookshelf, and he already has talked to her about the fact that she doesn't think it's paranormal, that she thinks something's trying to talk to her. That is the metaphor. Your future is making you pay attention to certain elements that change your past. And the way you do that is by going into sacred time. And the way what you do, it's spirituality is not what you do, but how you do it. That is where the choice comes in.
I'm sitting there.
Cool. That means you can change everything if you play.
Now, how do I? All right. Well, so how do I? How would I don't want to say enhance. I mean, how would I? How would I
watch your mind going into the out of?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm thinking like, okay, what can I do? I mean, it's all makes sense to me, and it talk about synchronicity. This we're talking today, how it happened, what we're talking about, what has recently happened in my life. It's like I get why this is happening, and I hope people who are watching is having their own moments,
have their own relationship to it. That's correct. That's
but I sure appreciate it myself. But I'm looking at it. Okay, how can I participate in this more readily? Do I listen closer?
Oh, you can start by keeping a diary. That's honest journaling, Ira Progoff. You can start by attempting to form an internal dialogue with yourself. It's a language of how you talk to yourself. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody's different in the way they do that. But it's all the same, just like religion. There are probably as many religions as there are human beings. And the only reason we have churches is because of charismatics, and we band together for fellowship, stricturing or enforcing or helping enhance our given belief or value.
But I forgot what to say now. I got lost.
Uh-oh. He hit a blind spot.
See, my cache memory is a little weak, so when I got ready to say something and I stop and wait, it kind of just goes away. And so I should write it down from now on.
It has to do with the moment. That is, you were not supposed to.
All right, here we go. I'm assuming that this communication would be either enhanced or perhaps even better, say, inhibited by nutrition. Like, for example, if your brain nutrition is off, you might not be able to perceive as well.
Meds? You mean you're on meds?
No, not meds. I mean, meds would do it. Meds probably why they want us all on meds is it would cut it off. I'm talking about nutrition because I've started taking these supplements that are just supplements. There's no drugs involved, and I'm telling you, I mean, I feel more like I was. I'm.
How did Hal 9000 put it? I can feel it. His brain is closing down. Listen, buddy, a supplement is a drug by definition. It started with World War I when Germany controlled the raw material universe and would not give people valerian root, and so we started synthesizing valerian sulfate for Valium. There's your natural supplement.
No, but Valium is not valerian. I mean, it's a derivative of it's a whatever. It's not the same thing.
Oh, yeah, another German invention: standardized extract over full spectrum or natural source.
I do both.
When you go for aspirin from aspen leaf and aspen bark, they contain acetylsalicylic acid, but they also contain natural buffers that are seemingly unrelated. Like in dimethyltryptamine, you find it in crabgrass, but it's buffered with other kinds of things that make it more assimilable to the human body. I find it interesting that particular neurotransmitter, very complex one, is found in the most commonest of plants. It's almost as if it's a delivery system from God.
But I do like the whole spectrum. I mean, you know, if you look at what I take, like ginkgo and all that, I have the full spectrum and I have the extract because I want the whole leaf and so forth. So, I mean, I get what you're saying. But we got a break coming up here. And, you know, I was going to do two different shows, but we might as well just do a 2-hour one because we're going to be going all over the place. People will listen to the second one. They don't know where we're coming from. So, all right, well, hang in there, Doc. We'll be right back. Richard Allen Miller. You know why I picked this song, of course. I thought of Richard Allen Miller, our guest. He's a man of miracles. So, welcome back to the show, Richard.
I love your music. I actually really do like your music. Thank you. You're making my day like I hope to make yours.
Well, yeah, I would appreciate. I'd like to be able to give back a lot of what you have given myself, let alone the listeners.
You have, James. You know that the last time when you wrote that piece about me, it made me cry.
Wow. Well, I'm telling you, you know what? It came right out of me because it's pure, honest truth. You know, I mean, it just boom, there it was.
It made me cry. I actually got welled up and got plugged up in the nose.
Well, I mean, it's true. So, I mean, it's nice when I can say something that is true, and it's nice because I say a lot of stuff that's true and unpleasant. So.
You came from Chicago. I know those rules.
You got to tell like it is. I mean, you can be nice about it, but nonetheless, there's only so many ways you can make something unpleasant sound, you know. But anyway.
Yeah, Chicago is great. You know, it's so
hey, what's up with that? You know what I'm talking about? Hey, what do you mean? I'm from Chicago. Hey, what's going on? You know, like that? So anyway, Richard L. Miller, we were talking before. You'd mentioned about my Harley for Red Line Oil. And so I went out and Red Line Oil actually had through Amazon, they had a deal where they had all the fluids.
Well, I use it in my 280Z. Let me tell you, I never need to change the oil. I do just because of drill and wearing out of my parts because they're old. My engine right now has 300,000 miles on it, and the ports are within a quarter of a pound true across the board. I can't believe the quality of the way they made that vehicle back in 1976. It impresses me, for it competed with the Porsche, which was 9 times more money for the same quality of car. I don't know. Datsun back then did something very special, kind of like what Ford did with the Mustang. Something unique and one of a time. Oh, look at that one.
There's
man.
the baby,
now,
the
that's
beast.
What I'm talking about.
I call it the beast because when I hit that throttle, it just drags me down the road, like, you know.
They call that what is that? A 4-inch extension on your front end?
No, it's
extension.
As far as I know, it's stock. It's the Heritage.
Well, stock now is different. You know, I had a Bonneville and I put a 6-inch extension on my arms, and it made me look like Easy Rider.
Oh, you mean the handlebars?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. It could be. It could be. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not one of those ape arm deals.
Oh,
they call
no,
it.
I'm not talking about your ape hangers.
Yeah.
I'm talking about instead of the wheels coming straight down like they did in the old German, what were they called, Indians. That's got about a 4-inch extension in terms of the way your front bar goes out to the wheel.
Oh.
It's gives it a nice little line to it, gives it a little better steering.
The only thing that I am reading about on this is the exhaust. I didn't know what it was. It turns out they're called Thunderheaders. How's that for a name? That's the company who makes them in California, and they provide the most horsepower torque ratio because when you have one, you lose the other. But boy, they're called Thunderheaders for a reason because they're loud. I wanted to get something quieter, but everybody talked me into keeping them because they're so good for the bike. They breathe well.
Yeah, that's the way a biker makes his statement.
Well, I'm not making any statements, but I just want to make. You could talk me into keeping it if it's breathing well. But anyway, as we sit and chat like we're alone, for those out there watching, we were going to do a 2 1-hour segments on different topics, but it's not going to happen. So we're going to be doing one.
It doesn't work like that with me. I'm more circular. I mean, that's why they have a first grade school teacher now for my handler. I'm hard to handle, Mama. That's why they call her a wrangler. She handles small children and animals on set.
Now, if I may dig a little bit here, I can't help but I can't ignore the word handler. Who is they? And
Yeah, that those aliens out there that this was a gift that they finally gave to me on my birthday. My red hat wore out, and so they gave me. And look at the logo. In God we trust. All others we monitor. That's Navy Intel. That is the cool. And it just turns out that I also have my great grandfather's Eye of Agamotto on, which you can. It's very old. And if you want to take a closer look at that eye in the triangle, it has. Excuse me. Let me try to do this so you can get a close-up shot. You'll notice it has Mars and Venus at the bottom, which culminates towards judgment at the top. That's the integration of my masculine and feminine part of self. And that piece of jewelry is over 200 years old. And it's been in my family a very long time, called like Dr. Strange will call it the Eye of Agamotto, the all-seeing eye. Yeah, there you go. It's all in metaphor. You're just trying to have some fun. You're like Cyndi Lauper. That's where timelessness occurs, is in humor, and you'll find that is the path that connects the two primary paths to God. You either go to God on the male or female side, and they go in as two paths. The male side is called the hermit, and the female side is the lovers, androgyny, where you have it integrated inside, or you have a female representing your inner landscape on the external world as you made up. That's in the tree of life. And the path that crosses them, the little triangle thing that happens, this little path right in here, that's called humor. And it goes right through the abyss. And that's where youth lies and how to become younger. Elixir vitae with 0 defects. Oh, man. It's a way of being with yourself. And what that is, literally, is the next evolution in consciousness where you are actually in physical dialogue consciousness with your future. And that makes this little thing I did back in the early 70s, Navy SEALs. It changes things. It changes everything. And that's how you change the movie. You work from the moment. So rather than have a pre-recorded, pre-heard line of things we're going to talk about, I automatically allow myself to just be, and you get what you get. And that is what my future timeline requires to become real.
And I'm happy with that. I'm just, I guess I'm trying to do this as some type of linear production with our nonlinear stuff. I'm fine. I can talk.
Part 2. Yeah, I got it.
I can put out a 5-hour talk with you, and I'll be totally fine with it. I'll watch it myself to refresh. So, I've been told that if you have 1 hour or chunks, it's people will watch the first one and then they'll sit down and watch the second one rather than watch, put a 4-hour thing on. They're not going to sit there for 4 hours. I would. I am.
Well, it depends on where you are with yourself at that moment. And hopefully what I'm doing is hitting what we call resonance. It is the way one system talks to another system in hierarchies where the thing vibrates here and it causes something bigger to vibrate. The next thing you know, the body is vibrating, and you have this resonant cavity oscillation thing going on inside your body with dialogue. That is exactly how the structure and memory in water works with your body and becoming you. Water is, and the memory forms in water. Jerry Pollack, fourth phase of water. He was my lead in 1970. He's the guy that hired me when Boeing laid off 30,000 scientists. I started immediately working in anesthesiology. That's when I went from SEAL Corporation into MRU. Hoorah. Jerry Pollock was there in the beginning, just like they all were, where it's like a little boys club of boys from Brazil. And Jerry was, I didn't work for Jerry. He was my lead. And that means I had my own project. I had a higher security clearance. But he would help me achieve my goals by finding me a Bridgeport Mill on campus or something. I actually did some serious stuff when I worked there at the U and UW. And it was a time where I was into that moment and didn't think about it, just like you are with your bike and your brand new studio. And all of this will make you the dark night of radio. There you go. That's how it'll work.
Well, I went through and all this stuff.
Man.
I am so happy about all this stuff. I went and got a different mixer by Allen and Heath. It's really high quality stuff, but I got a good price on it. Again, synchronistically, it all worked out. And you can't believe how many wires are behind this thing. You can't. There's no way to understand it. I when I got done reconfiguring it, I had three. I felt like it was Jesus when he made the fish and in the bread or whatever. When I got done, I had three baskets of cables that came out of it. I'm thinking, like, it's phenomenal. But I'm looking at your website. It's got a picture of Donald Trump kissing Vladimir
Like that one, do you? I'll tell you what. Russia has just announced, newsflash, that it would like to go to war against corporate America, but really doesn't want to go to war against Americans. Now, where did I hear that before? With Russia. Same thing, switcheroo. And here we are at the end of days. That's a good one. Papyrus, yeah.
Papyrus discovery shows a UFO landing on a Sphinx. Do they actually show the papyrus?
Yeah, they have actual documents now showing star maps. How does that all work? Yeah.
Oh, there's the stars. Yeah.
And it goes on and on. Of course, we have been visited. How could we not? Of course, we are experiments of the gods. How could we not? There is a strong belief that the so-called giants that were stolen in the 18th, 19th century by the Smithsonian and dumped in the Atlantic Ocean because it would have shown that we had aliens or other kinds of human beings that had horns as part of their, skeletal structure, the Lloyd Pies, Star Child. These were probably previous epochs with more advanced DNA projects than we have currently today. And they made unicorns, probably. I don't know. I wasn't there. I can vet it. When you go into France and see star maps, see these bison, and the original thing is to think, oh, yeah, that's a caveman drawing cave art. And then you notice these little dots around its eye, and they correspond precisely with star maps. That's interesting. And then you go to this other cave, and you got the same dots, except they're in reverse, indicating that they were witnessed from space. And so you have to wonder what the asteroid belt and Mars might have been regarding Atlantis and the idea of a water planet.
Well,
Mars actually has more water than Earth does, yeah.
I want to recommend a book to you or all listening. The name of the book is called Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods. Dr. Rita Louise has been on my show many times. She we talked about this. She was talking to me as I was driving and as the book was being done. She basically went around the world and looked at all the ancient, we'll call them religions with the gods and all that, and correlated between all these areas which have, quote, no way to talk to one another, different languages. They all have correlation between the major groupings of their gods. And in her book that she wrote with her now deceased husband, they chronicled kind of like a what's the word that Jung uses? Archetypes. They kind of probably take the archetypes of all these various gods in all the areas cultures, and her conclusion was that it seems that it would be alien aliens who have touched all these together.
And or a second breakaway civilization on a binary star that's coming through our solar system right now. Stanford has already discovered planet 10 and shown it. It's larger than Jupiter. There is a brown dwarf star as our binary that has an unusual IR signature, similar to what I posted on that other star that appears to have an artifact around it called a Dyson sphere. Now, I don't know, and I know Gerald Clark, and some of the others that talk about Nibiru. And I'm going to tell you that we are going to witness, all of you listening to me at this moment, as a consciousness, are going to witness the end of days. And that's why you're here, as a metaphor. And that you have choices on how you can see this extinction level LB, ALEVE or ELE. Extinction level event. You have choices on how you can relate to this. And death is an unknown. Lots of different people write about it. I studied with a woman called Kubler-Ross out of Houston, and I took some course from her, and then had wonderful experiences with people like Eben Alexander. And I can tell you that there is a similar thread in archetypal metaphor on people that experience death and then come back to life, Lazarus. And that if you go into the original Bibles used by Mark, Luke, and Peter, the Colburn Bible, that one should also show you, you're showing all my different things there. Yeah, brown dwarf neighbor at the sun. Yes, thank you. You're right on it. That's very good of you. You know, that is exactly what we're talking about. And the Hopi medicine, what Indian medicine is, you got Tribal Council and Medicine Lodge. What Medicine Lodge is like an enemy mine where they sing. Yes. Yeah, the Colburn Bible, there it is. You've got it. You're right on it. That book, like, what is that one? I'm trying to think of Urantia papers and different other things that have been channeled that have similar things. The Hopi sing their songs and dances to their children as their way of teaching history and their way of being, which is unique. And that is called medicine. And basically, when the Clovis crawled out of a cave with cave pictures of this invading star, now called the Blue Cochina, that is a metaphor for what is about to happen again on our what we call sixth epoch. And where we are
I'm
today,
noticing that this artist's conception is it's blue. This cold brown dwarf.
Yeah, well, it has an unusual infrared signature indicating that it's got some kind of artifact around it. That's what makes it very interesting, and nobody really knows. I have some friends at JPL that are retired sending me stuff. I posted some on my website today about the sunspot that has just been emitted from the sun, and we're due any minute. You know, like suspicious observers, that's a good place to get some information about what's going on with our sun. The sun is what's going to affect everything on Earth, and something is affecting our sun right now. So where are we going with all of this? Well, you have a choice of being fearful or having faith in the belief that what's going to happen is that death is not. When my little girl, I'll put it to you this way. I had a little girl that died of leukemia, and it took her 2.5 years. We went through Dornbecker's and the Ronald McDonald House, and we went through oh yes, there's your Sphinx picture right there. Yeah, that's the one on the Sphinx, and where they discovered those transcripts. It's interesting. The metaphor is being able to fly through space via wormholes. And that's what that article is about, and how it documents with other things. Yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff going on too. You know, I don't like the fact that China owns 50% of Oregon.
50%?
Did you know that?
I mean, 50% is quite a pretty big number. I mean,
that is an absolute fact because BLM is using our forests as a way to pay off our debt. And further, that's what Burns, Oregon was all about. And you'll see a post there on the uranium, that just the uranium fields and the mining that's going on. That came through, oh yeah, what's her name? Clinton. Yeah, Clinton Foundation. There it is, all of it. And Burns, Oregon, I mean, not Burns, Oregon, the Bundy Ranch in Nevada, that was all about China coming in and taking over utilities.
Well, now it says BLM leases Hammond ranch land to Russia.
Yeah.
We have to China.
Well, it's going to go to China, trust me. That's where it all goes. China moved into Vancouver, BC, a few years back with the so-called Maple Leaf Fund, and they run the entire of Canada now and on their utilities. It's British Columbia, their stock exchange is like the Hong Kong exchange now. And it is the seat of Spice Trade, where all the pharmaceutical houses have set up shop up there in Vancouver.
Here's the sunspot.
Yeah, the article I did on that. That's just today's posts, trying to keep you current on what's going on. I have about, I'm almost up to 20,000 views a week now. So, trying to get people to wake up and make up their own mind on where they want to go with things.
Nestle's, yeah, I've been reading about them buying up the water.
The very best. Makes the very best. And then the bear comes out and says, chocolate. You know, chocolate cures everything. It's got phenylalanine, methylamine, theobromine. I'm going to run it down, man. There's your neurotransmitters. Yeah, going green. That's the way to do it. You want to be perfectly healthy, juice. That's the name of that game.
Yeah, well, what I do to try and do juice is I use the green powder.
Magma. That's Ann Wigmore. Well, that's roto-rootering you. I eat fiber too.
I mean, it's actually, I use perfect food is the one brand I have.
Yeah. Oh, Ann Wigmore started up in Wisconsin. She's had the green magma movement and used to do colonial irrigations and the whole thing like that. I think you'll find my website. I'm trying to keep it up. And I have this cross-referenced with my
That's some pretty impressive tornadoes there. Do you think there's some shenanigans going on there with the creation of those?
Yeah. They have begun weaponizing the geoengineering and HARP a couple years back when they did Hawaii, and they hammered it with tornadoes up in. Where was that? It was in what town got hammered? There were 3 islands. They actually were able to take a tornado and move it and use it as a weapon. Eric, just playing. You know, just this last year, they used lithium on Reedsport, Oregon, as a way to lock down a small city on unrest. And like I said, just a couple days ago, the local SWAT teams were doing exercises on how to lock down a bank that, defaults. That picture, that's an old picture at a religious conference, and that is a rabbi and a bishop next to me in comparative religion, and I was speaking on witchcraft, which was, like Native American religions. It's totemism and animism, the way of relating to spirits. Mm. Some old pictures of me. Yeah, I've been doing it a long, long time. You'll notice in that picture, by the way, if you go back to it, you'll notice I have my eye in the triangle. There it is, right in the center. I've been wearing that for a very long time. And that's because I had to go up against the likes of Simon LeBeau and George Aquino and the Temple of Set and the Church of Satan. I did some dialogue with both of them, and I thought I better, armor up. Yeah. I carry a concealed weapons permit too. When I was visiting you, I actually forgot my passport. Remember when I was in Chicago at the Psychotronic conference?
Yeah.
And we got a chance to spend some time together. I remember I went through the Chicago airport and they wanted my ID, and I mistakenly handed her my concealed weapons permit, instead of my driver's license. They look exactly the same. And believe it or not, they were so hysterical, I missed my flight.
Yeah, well.
I can't believe it. I couldn't imagine what would happen if I showed them my medical marijuana card. My God. Yeah, they would have.
Well, next time you come here, they've now made it legal, medical marijuana legal in Illinois. So there's.
Stay tuned on how that all plays. You know, there's a problem with making it recreational, like we have out here in Oregon. Now, what that does is makes it a moneymaker for the state, and they stop all research on its benefits, medical.
Right, which is legion. I mean, I think there's so much. If I could, right now, because I work for the DOT, I can't. But if I didn't, I would start a regiment of hemp oil. I should say cannabis oil.
Yes.
Yeah, it wouldn't get high or nothing. It's just a nutrient, and I would do it immediately. But
well, there's all kinds of things in it that need and should be further discovered, including loss of memory and how it does brain cell damage. I doubt it. I've been smoking pot for so long. It's like that cockroach general that's flushing his army down the toilet, and he munches to the lieutenant next to him. Lots more where that came from. That was Freddy's cat and the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. I love those comics.
All right, well, take a little break here. We're going to come back. We'll take about a minute or so, and we'll come back and do the final half hour of our little chat. Richard Allen Miller. There's so many ways that you can find him. We've been looking on web pages. There's a Facebook where you can look up, just search for Richard Allen Miller, and you have a couple of choices there. His
DocRam.com.
DrRam.com?
DocRam, DocRam.com.
All right, well, we'll look that up and add that in the mix. And we'll be back right after this. So stay tuned. We have the Walrus with us today. You can ask John Lennon, they'll tell you. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, you see my little psychedelics light show I put on for you?
You're doing wonderfully. The way you are producing this show live with me is how did Chief George Dan put it? You make my heart glad.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad I make your heart glad, because you make mine. Richard Allen Miller is our guest. I always love having you on here. In fact, we should do this probably semi-regularly, because I think from the email I get anyway, people like the interaction, and of course everybody loves what you bring to the table. So I'm down with that, bro, as you would say. So,
I love working with you anyway. You're smart. You get almost everything. You get me, and that's nice going. Thank you for being my friend.
All right. Well, the same goes back to you there. So as we're looking, you're this end of days. I mean, for someone to sit here and say, like, well, we're all here to see the end of days, and that's a good thing. I mean, it's hard to tell people who are attached to the material. One thing I did learn, I know it's an old Buddhist thing. This is nothing new I'm saying, but I got it inside, is that the source of most pain is attachment. And when you're attaching to material, for example, material will pass away. If you're attaching to situations or relationships or with jobs or whatever, the cure to that is to separate you from the attached item, to learn to live without it, and then you can then have something similar because you're not attached to it. You have to learn it. So the idea is you can nip it in the bud by not becoming attached, and you won't have to go through all of that trauma.
Yeah, it's karma, and how you fight your way through life, or you allow it, like a sannyasa, to show you what it wants you to have. And it turns out you have, even when they put you in prison, you still have everything you need. Toilet paper.
By the way, someone asked me the most important thing that is made from trees, which of course can be made from hemp. So to me, it's toilet paper. That's the most important thing. Not even book paper, because you can, with our electronic age, you can have electronic screens, but try to wipe your butt with your laptop. Your iPhone. Toilet paper is really important. And I don't want to go back to the rags. So,
Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at what's happening out here. And I think the grumpiness that I'm seeing is because I'm getting older and I'm seeing more clearly. By the way, that can be a limitation. Castaneda had the four enemies of man. The first one was fear, and that once you overcame fear, you achieved a degree of personal power. And power in itself then became corrupting. And as you regulated that, you started to see things more clearly. That clarity also became a limitation or an enemy. And then, of course, the fourth one is the one I currently enjoy, which is old age. Too old to do anything about it. Gotta love Carlos Castaneda.
Yeah, it's like of course, I'm getting a deja vu now. We did this already. It's like there's a video I saw. There's a composite. It came out in the 70s called the Fantastic Animation Festival. And it was a composite of various animations. It's not available on DVD. You have to literally look for a VHS tape. But there was a little short in there where a baby is born and they're trying to reach for the doorknob. Right, as it's growing, of course, it's all done in.
Gotta get out of here.
It's done in fast time, and the whole video is just this room that he gets up to, he can reach the doorknob. He's happy. He starts to turn it. He fights with the doorknob. He grows old, and as he is growing old and falling down, as he lets go the doorknob, it opens up, and then he dies. Yeah. What happens is it opens up and a ironing board comes out and knocks him in the head. So
I remember the electric light company out of San Francisco, Retina Eye Company. And some of the things they used to do at the various rock festivals. I actually was at Sky River 3 up in Strawberry Mountain when Janis Joplin came across Canada on that train. And at Strawberry Mountain, it was the third Sky River festival, and it was up in Canada, just across the border up near the Okanagans. That's a long time ago. And when Big Brother and the holding company was saying, what you want to do is see that little tiny movie, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and the way that baby handles doorknobs. That's a picture.
I did see it. I just don't remember it.
Yeah, I know. He smokes a cigar. He's on stage.
I mean, I remember it in a peripheral sense.
See, that's what I was gifted in. I have what's called an eidetic memory. I take snapshots, and they're forever. I can pull your picture up in my mind's eye 30 years from now and see things in that picture that I did not consciously notice at the time I took the picture. That's the way my future is talking to me. It is resolution of the information. You have everything inside you. That's what the
my memory is. My memory seems to be more of a big picture type of thing, where I can see the implications in a big picture sense, but the details are hard to remember.
Well, that's the metaphor part of resolution in the hologram, and as you get smaller into it, you lose resolution or detail. That's what makes a holographic universe quite different than a quantum universe. Quantum universe is based on space-time, presuming everything is measured in distance and time, even atomic clocks. However, I taught Navy SEALs how to perceive their martial arts as a form of Tai Chi when in fact they were boxing just by breathing techniques. The first and last thing you do when you enter the physical plane. And when you come out angry and pissed off because you're screaming and uptight. Some asshole has just, whacked you on the butt and, hostile. First thing that happens to you, you're knocked around, man. And they fingerprint you and they take you away from mom. And it's pretty traumatic. There was a friend of mine that taught courses at Berkeley that later formed a thing called The Farm, Steve Gaskins. And in his, he wrote, that book, Spiritual Midwifery, and the way we're brought into this world can absolutely change the kinds of trauma that we perceive and continue to enjoy as part of our cycle of how we were born. Getting over those old behavior patterns. You talked about addiction in your advertising, and I, of course, have been studying the drug Ibogaine from the rare plant Iboga. Are you familiar with that at all?
No.
It stops all forms of addiction with one single use. And FDA was not going to study it because it was not native to the United States, because why would they want to stop gambling and spousal abuse, which it also works on? The picture I saw, a movie I saw with lots of scientists, they took a 14-year IV user off of Amsterdam Park, and in a 30-hour clinical intake on this drug, Ibogaine, watched him going through all these nightmares. This guy, at the end of 30 hours, doing an outtake on what the experience was about, will never do heroin again, had no withdrawals, and when he lit up a cigarette, smoke and talk about it, he looked at the cigarette and doesn't smoke anymore.
Could you spell that? Could you spell that for me, the name of the drug?
Ibog, Ibogaine, Gaine, from the plant Iboga, Iboga, Iboga plant. It's Boidi of the Fang is the cult that uses it, and it's a nightmare experience that you go through 30 hours of nightmare dreams of how you got from there to here with your addictions. And it is not site selective and somehow flushes addictive response coefficients in your sites, like for endorphins and ecthalins. Nobody knows exactly yet how it works, except that it will stop forms of addiction to include spousal abuse and gambling. And I remember when, what was it called, Tombstone, and his girlfriend was addicted to morphine, which was at that time called laudanum, was tincture of gold with morphine, with opium. And that process has now gotten more finely defined on what addiction is and what it is not. And it's not something you can do casually and on your own. It absolutely requires a clinical application. And today, the statistics are that 80% that do it are no longer addicted.
Well, they
no
do.
Withdrawal.
I am noticing there are clinical.
Yes, and we're going to go further on that. What happened was, I'm a drug expert, and FDA called me from Portland. That's the offices, not Washington, D.C., that determine the studies that are done in drug testing out of Portland, Oregon. They called me and wanted my take on what Ibogaine was, and I explained to them what I thought was, I have a model on how it works, having to do with PGO waves in the occipital region of the cerebral cortex, and we'll talk about that in a second. However, this drug is what it does. Well, we don't know how it works, but the FDA decided they were not going to study it because it was not native to the United States, and I got pissed off. And so I had a friend in Homestead, Florida, that cultivated 2 acres of it just before the hurricanes hit in the 90s. That individual was being studied by John Mack. His wife was a regular alien abduction thing, and I was there on location at the time of several of her abductions because I was working with Mack and others at Harvard in that regard. And where it ended up is that the plant climatized all through Florida. Now it grows everywhere now in Florida, and so now 11 universities, and you'll find them all over on site, all of them will in fact are doing clinical studies on this thing. And if you are a serious addict, there is a high likelihood that if you submit your name for study as a willing volunteer at one of these universities, there is a high likelihood they'll work with you. It works. Nobody knows how. Basically, the games that we play with ourselves in the early morning when we wake up is like our auto exec bat file and config config sys file where when you flush the toilet, before the water fills up, you have to put your toothpaste on your toothbrush. Those little games you play like that, that is the foundation of addiction. And what defines you doing something in moderate altitude or overdoing it. And some of that has to do with dialogue from your past, having to do with your neurotic father that beat you, or your mother that abandoned you, or the da-da-da-da-da that divorced you. All of these things become part of who you are, and these little rituals that you play. And it is now believed by the French, and I believe their model is correct. I think it rewrites those belief systems on a core issue or core level. That's why it's such a traumatic experience. The Bouidi of the Fang will say that if you you experience Bouidi, that's this drug, only twice in your life, when you are initiated into becoming a man and when you die. And the two are the same, and that's a part of our concept of being reborn. And you will find that those definitions are actually part of the original Colburn Bible and the teachings of Christ as he was in a scene. Now, I have had nonsense about all this religious stuff that's going on and the way these churches are trying to discriminate one thing from another. And it's not right any more than it's right for them to control our drugs. Actually, on the war of drugs, that was old Bubba Clinton and his little bridge across Arkansas. I have a federal judge that says he was literally the worst criminal in history out of Arkansas, and now his wife is running for president. How do you think that's going to play when she appoints him head of the United Nations? That's how it's going to play, and we are in deep.
Oh, I do want to say, for years ago, I knew when Clinton was in office, I knew that the presidency was a stepping stone and that he wanted to be Secretary General. I predicted that, and so that would be.
And that's what will happen when Hillary is anointed. And boy, if you want to see some fun, go to Saturday Night Live and look at their skits on caricaturisms of her and how she has actually been on Saturday Night Live and participated. Now, there's the last woman that did what she did, they executed her. And that's going to be our new president, most likely. Trump, if he is miraculously somehow elected, it will be his running mate that will become president. That loud. Well, you can assume it.
Yeah.
I mean, get a grip. It's we have no idea how badly we have been hijacked.
I think we're starting to see the.
And addictions are just part of. It's a new car. It's that addictions are the least of it. That all what I discovered when I was down in Hollywood. Matt and I did an urban survival skill workshop at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Go figure. And I have to tell you, what I saw there scared me. The people and their values there, they have no idea. And that is the primary tool, but used by the 1%ers to do man control. Because Hollywood, if she could.
Where do you get these things?
I don't know. I'm just a sick man. The way I see it, it's crazy. And it's time for us to really rethink how did they do it in Star Wars when the guy's going to light up this thing, a death stick, I think, and he said, time to go home and rethink your life. That's time for you to go home and rethink your life. It's time to change this movie. And we can do it. We can do it. Actually, we can do it. Just like that, because it's divine right. And the 1%ers are actually ramping up because they're out of control and they know it. They don't have control like they think they do. They have control of money and your depression. That's easy. We just give you more sugar. There, that's my attitude for the day. How's your day going?
Well,
Well, I think that the idea of choice is the key, and to have attitude about it. And that while they might be able to compromise, they can't compromise me. I'm going to try to walk my talk and teach my children, because everything that I'm doing right now, my daughter's watching me. That's how she learned how to do what she does, including spousal abuse and gambling or whatever. I mean, that's how the children get there, watching you.
well, yeah, and I've noticed that there are people who watch their dysfunctional parents and emulate them, and there are those who go 180 from that. They
And both of them are out of balance.
yeah.
I am almost. My dad was a bigot. I mean, he had he was Navy. He had a name for every single race in the universe: WAP, Gook, Slant, Slope, Block. He had all these different names, Charlie. And now I've watched how I went 180 degrees, and I'm overwhelmed. I was actually in the Philadelphia riots. I was there in the 60s when Philadelphia went on fire. I was at a tavern in Newark, Delaware, and what had happened is we were sitting there watching the Winter Olympics when grad school, and there were firebombs that came in all through windows. And when we came running out of the small tavern, there were a bunch of bikers from Philadelphia with chains waiting. That happened the next day. Showed police helicopters flying down at 8 o'clock in the morning. It looked like something out of science fiction, where the streets were all wrapped up in curfew. Philadelphia race riots. I was there. I saw it. And what I actually saw was a group mentality that's different than individuals. Arthur Ashe was my doubles partner. I played at the Marion Cricket Club and the DuPont Country Club, and we were doubles for the Davis Cup. And I have to tell you, individually, they are the most scholarly people, and yet as a race, they degrade down like Watts and the Watts riots of LA. It's scary to realize that there is a group mentality that is distinguished differently from individuals, and it's in all of us, and it's about thugs. And that's what we call a zombie. East LA, when they're out of food. The panic and the free-for-all looting of getting something for nothing, taking advantage of a situation like someone hurt. We obviously have some problems and have been programmed right from Tavistock right down to Howdy Doody and television and Clarabelle and all of it. I've seen it. I see it in myself. The fact that I can see it in myself means I have it, just like everything else. That's Jungian again, and projection of the shadow. The idea that if you're going to be able to see a fault in someone, it's because it exists in you. And we were talking earlier about that as the demon, or the lesser part of self that is deemed unworthy. That's the purpose of meditation and going internal, getting dialogue and connection with the internal part of self. The answers are not outside in the written word, like the church would demand you to believe. It's not in that, it's your response to those words. And that's the internal response. That's where truth lies. And that's what I have discovered. And that's why I would say that there are as many different churches as there are human beings. And the Colburn Bible was the one that was used from a previous epoch. And there it is. We are at the end of days.
And we are at the end of the show. So before the music comes in, which would be any minute now, I want to start to wind it up. And how would you, in a minute, how would you suggest people who are watching this now or connecting with this end of days thing, what's the first thing they should do?
Probably start keeping a dialogue or journal of their dreams and their thoughts for a given day, and going back and having those reverberate memory and what's significant in what you wrote that day. That's what a dialogue, that's what a journal is for. The Sonoy did it. The Sonoy Dream Manuals by Kaplan. Kaplan Williams is actually a worthy tool. Begin with the diary. Start that dialogue with yourself. That's how you start this process.
All right, I've been doing it verbally instead of writing, but
same thing.
All right. Well,
and you have an archive. And you go back and listen to it.
That's true. Well, Richard Alan Miller, again, it's been fun. We'll have to do this sooner than later, and it's just good to hang out. I mean, I'd like to come out there sometime. So hopefully, you know, are you going to go to the event this July?
I haven't been invited. I was supposed to go to Europe, and I haven't told Kara yet, but I can't really afford it.
Okay.
I wait and go to Europe on another tour, and so July is completely open right now. I am doing gun shows. I'll be in Springfield with the RK in Kansas City in the RK gun shows. And if you come down, I'll introduce you to Storm and Norman,
okay.
The real Rhoda.
All right, Richard. It's the hang in there because we're going to put you on the big screen as we go out. So take care. I'll talk to you later. Richard Alan Miller. One of my faves. Live from the West Coast. Feet to the fire. We'll be back next week. God willing, and the creek doesn't rise too high anyway.
Oh, my old friend, the one who walked before, the one who walk again, the ancient one of old, with wisdom for the new. Revive our inner sight. Retell your timeless truths. Oh, it's your word.
Feet to Fire is a production of IPS Media Works on the OnSync Radio network of stations.